It's all right, Howard. It's strong.
Good evening.
Hello, Judy.
Hi, we're just camping out at the moment. We can't use our sitting room because we're having it painted after the flood.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Evening.
And of course, everyone who is watching us through Zoom and will be participating through Zoom. So this is our second hybrid meeting, isn't it, really? Okay. I take the time, so we start straight away. Item 1, webcasting introduction. Could Gary please do the honours?
Thank you, Chairman. The Chairman would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. If you're seated in the lower public seating area, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. In addition, if there are any technical issues which interrupt the meeting tonight, we may have to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Right, item 2. Members, we were all deeply saddened last week to hear of the senseless loss of the Member of Parliament of Southend West, Sir David Amess. Sir David played an active part in serving his country and the community of Southend. He will be sorely missed by so many. Our deepest condolences go to his family, his friends, and all those who knew him. It is also my sad task to inform you of 2 former chairmen of council who have also passed away recently. Harry Taylor. Harry was a Conservative member who served Waltham Abbey on the 3 separate occasions. From 1974 to 1987, from 1991 to 1995, and from 1999 to 2003. It was during his first term as a councillor that he was elected as chairman of council in 1979. The other former chairman is Doug Kelly. Doug was a Liberal Democrat member who represented 2 wards in Ongar, Ruthin County from 1996 to 2004, and Morton and Fifield from 2004 to 2008. Doug was honoured to serve as chairman for the civic year 2003 to 2004. I have a quote from his daughter Alison I would like to read you. Dad was a highly principled and consistent individual. He demonstrated integrity and consistency in everything he did. He instilled these principles in all he did, even when ridiculed or at risk of harm. He believed in the power of free speech and the establishment. His strength of character made him a respected and honourable man. The strength of this man's personality and leadership gave people the freedom to believe that their views mattered within a democratic society and provided a safe space to express them. I will be attending Doug's service, church service. Now I know I would therefore ask you to remain seated and join me in a minute of silence in their honour. Okay, members, thank you very much for that. I know there are a few councillors who would like to pay tributes. So I will start with former chairman Harry Taylor, and I know Councillor Whitbread would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's see how this technology works this evening. I'd like to pay tribute to Harry. He was, I was only there in his third term, but I came across him numerous times as a Waltham Abbey councillor prior to that, and he was certainly a character. Very strident in his views, but he believed passionately in Waltham Abbey, and he was a good advocate for the town. So that's my memories of Harry. But as with anyone that we lose, it does remind you of the input that they had into their local communities during that time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. If you can mute yourself, thank you. Councillor Morgan. No, by all means, just as you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I got to know Harry when I came onto the council in 1983. It was when some of the meetings were up at Loughton and in the old council building. He took me under his wing and showed me the ropes and what to do and what not to do. He certainly put me right if I did anything wrong. He was a real character. But I can remember the annual council meeting, which is known as the Night of the Long Knives. And that went on and on and on. And it was well after midnight when we eventually got finished on those meetings. But it was certainly, but after the meetings, most of the members, and we've still got them here, had their own little cubby hole, and there's always a drink afterwards, after the meetings. So it was a very good memories of him, and I would thank him for all the work he did for me.
Thank you very much. I don't think anyone else. Okay. We'll go to former chairman Doug Kelly, and I would like, I know that Councillor Janet Whitehouse would like to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I first met Doug Kelly in the 1960s because he was a work colleague of a friend that I shared a flat with. They were both food scientists, so they worked for a well-known company. Doug suddenly resigned because he had a disagreement with a company about a preservative going into liver pate, which he felt was harmful for the customers. Years later, when I moved to Epping and Doug later moved to Ongar, our two families spent quite a lot of time together. Doug got involved in community activities in the fight to stop Willingale becoming the site of the third London airport. And he was elected, as the chairman has said, as the councillor for Roothing County and later for Morton and Fifield. Doug campaigned to keep the Ongar War Memorial Hospital as an NHS treatment centre, and he received a letter of thanks from the Polish government for his efforts. He was also active in the campaign to stop incineration in Essex, promoting recycling as an alternative. The position of chairman of Epping Forest District Council rotated around the political groups at that time. And when in 2003 it was the Liberal Democrats' turn to hold that position, I proposed Doug. He consulted his wife and accepted. Doug was very involved in the scouting movement and was awarded the Wood Badge, which is one of their highest honours for his service. And he held his civic reception award ceremony at the Scouts Gilwell Park. It was the first time we'd used that venue, and other council chairmen have used it since. Doug was brought up in a children's home, and when he married and had children, the family was very important to him. He told the Lib Dem group that he wouldn't do any council work or any campaigning on a Sunday because that was the day he was devoting to his family. Doug joined the Land Army when he was 14 and was quickly seen as having an empathetic relationship with animals. And so he was asked to join the Blues and Royals and served as a lifeguard and was on parade for 3 trooping the colours. An accident in which a horse threw him and kicked him in the spine led to him leaving the army. And at that time, the army would pay for 3 years of further education. And that was when Doug was able to devote himself to education and get the qualifications in chemistry that he added to over the years. He became a member of the Institute of Biology and later a chartered member in recognition of the original work he did on food safety. And his research papers are quoted as sources in some books. Doug's jobs in the chemical industry involved donning chemical protective clothes and breathing apparatus in order to do some of the inspections. And the pockets on clothes that he wore had to be sewn up because there was a danger of explosions. So in when in his 50s, he left all that behind, and he and his wife started their own company in property maintenance and cleaning. And amongst his contracts were Brentwood Cathedral and Chelmsford Cathedral. Doug was a man of high ethical principles and a committed Christian. He started life with nothing, and through hard work and the determination to overcome obstacles, he achieved academic excellence and was an active, well-liked and respected member of the local community. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. John Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I too was fortunate to know Doug before he joined the council, and with the excitement of going to his house in Fifield, as a child, because there's a river running through it, and the excitement of having to cross a bridge to get to the end of the garden. And he described Fifield when he became chairman as a piece of paradise, and that may help to explain in some way why he fought so passionately against the proposed Willingale airport at the time. And that commitment to the environment is something he carried through in his work to the council, something he retained that passion for, and as we've heard in some ways was ahead of his time with that. He was a consistent man, as we've heard, a passionate man, at times when he was defending what he saw as a point of principle, some might even say a bloody-minded man. He was also an incredibly compassionate and kind man, the sort of person who, when he asked how you were, was actually genuinely interested in hearing the answer. So he left his mark on the community, on business, on this council, most of all on the family and with the family that he leaves behind him. And so my thoughts with them this evening. Remember him with great affection. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I did just want to make a few remarks about Doug, because I remember him with great affection. I only saw him as a district councillor, and I have to say that everything that Janet Whitehouse has shared tonight backs up what I remember of the man. And thank you for sharing that level of detail, because it does show what a remarkable person Doug was. I remember his scientific approach. I was aware that he was a scientist, and he definitely adopted that to his approach to the district council. And I obviously wasn't aware that you were going to read anything from his daughter, but 4 of the words that she used were words that I had written down this afternoon to describe Doug: principled, integrity, disciplined and passionate. A unique man and a great councillor. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I knew Doug as a neighbouring ward councillor. He took over part of my ward in the real shuffle-up in 2004. He was a really community man. He did so much for the local community, looking after everybody, and in the different areas as well. I think Councillor Janet Whitehouse has said most of what I was going to say anyway, but he was a great man, really was, and he will really be missed by us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, not wishing to prolong, I think the daughter's words said everything about Doug Kelly and the Doug that I knew. He was a first-class councillor. He cared passionately about what he did, and that comes through in the comments made by Councillor Whitehouse and Councillor Whitehouse this evening. He was an excellent chairman of our council, first class, and he was just so emphatic about the area. And I always remember his annual dinner and how proud he was of the scouting movement as well. So there's so much you could say about Doug, but he was a first-class councillor. He cared passionately, and someone that I'm proud to have seen as a councillor. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, item 3, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman. We have apologies from councillors Barlow, Bassett, Durrell, Joggia, Lyon, Mead and Shear-Bernier.
Thank you very much. Item 4, I beg your pardon. Councillor Woodhouse?
I'm sure I remember submitting apologies for Councillor Macready, but if I didn't, apologies.
Sorry, she's was coming by Zoom.
Yes, that's what I've been told.
She
Councillor
asked for
Murray?
the Zoom.
Councillor Murray?
Yeah, I'm just a bit worried where Councillor Brooks is. As I brought her to the meeting, she doesn't appear to be in the chamber. Does anyone know where she is? Because she arrived at about 6:20 this evening.
I'm really sorry, I don't know.
Be unduly alarmist, but she didn't tell me she was going anywhere.
Shall I adjourn? Okay, we will carry on. Okay. Item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Murray?
Yes, Chairman, because of what I'm going to say, I need to declare a non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary interest on item 11, the motion, by virtue of being a weekly volunteer at the Epping Forest Food Bank and the Free Food for You Loughton Hub.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any hands on virtual. No. Okay, item 5. Any comments on the minutes that you have with you? Pages 9 to 28. Can we approve then the minutes? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 6, announcements. Members, as you can see, I do not have a vice chairman. So what I would like is I would like to ask Councillor Mary Sartin if she could be kind enough and be my vice chairman for tonight, please. Okay? Members, before we continue with our meeting tonight, I would like to acknowledge one of our members who has, after a delay for over 18 months, been presented with a national honour at Windsor Castle by Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal. Richard Morgan, or Richard Morgan MBE, has been awarded this honour in recognition for his services to the community. Without a doubt, Richard has been and still is one of the most active and influential local councillors serving within Epping Forest District Council and has served as chairman of council in 2004. Richard was elected as a local ward councillor on the district council in 1983 and, as we know, is still serving and representing local people to this day. Richard, please accept our congratulations on your honour, which we are all delighted that you have been recognised in such a way by becoming a member of the most excellent order of the British Empire. Congratulations from all of us.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for your very kind words. It was a great honour to receive this award or presentation from Princess Anne. Lovely lady to talk to. We were originally going to Buckingham Palace back last March, which had to be postponed 2 days before we went. But we did get there in about 2 weeks ago, as you said, to Windsor Castle, and Princess Anne did the presentation. So easy to get on with. A lovely day out, and I feel really honoured to receive this from her.
So you brought it with us. You brought it with you. So if you'd be kind enough, could you stand and We all see that. Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Wonderful. You must have noticed, and it is mentioned in the...
Chairman, can I just say, Councillor Brooks is coming any moment. She lost track of time.
I don't care now. She thought she got away with it.
You were missed, Councillor Brooks.
We
Thank you all for your concern.
Can I just ask you if you have any declarations of interest?
No, Madam Chairman.
Okay. All right. Well, it's nice to have you back here. We started getting worried. Okay, members, you must have noticed that, as it is mentioned in the bulletin, in the members' bulletin, my diary, I have been very busy. Although it is lovely to feel that we're getting to some kind of normality, we still need to be very careful as COVID has not gone away. There are a few highlights, but I would like to share with you. I was delighted to be present at the all-day health well-being event at our own premises in the community downstairs hub. And of course, I also was present and presented the art awards in the museum, where it was wonderful to see how young people in the district have been engaging with the arts. It shows what we do best: collaborate, working with the local community, and I thoroughly enjoy these events. I would also like to congratulate everyone who participated in the London Marathon. Well, we have many congratulations to Councillor John Whitehouse, finishing the London Marathon in very good time. Kira Seeger, the daughter of our Pat Seeger, who raised £3,500 for the Dogs Trust. And of course, our own officer, Jenny Greenwald, who works in business rates. I think it's many congratulations to all of you. Well done. We have some lovely flowers, and I would like the flowers to go to the Civic Hub to be enjoyed by all our visitors. And that is my announcement. Item 7, public questions, if any.
No, Chairman, we have no public questions tonight.
Okay. Item 8, questions by members under notice. We have a question by Councillor Chris Pond to the portfolio holder for Planning Services, Councillor Nigel Bedford. Councillor Pond, could you actually ask your question for the
Yes,
webcast?
Chairman.
Thank you.
The question is whether the portfolio holder will consider giving 12 months public notice of issuing Article 4 directions to prevent the use of permitted development rights in respect of the following: conversion of shops to residential, conversion of offices and similar buildings to residential, and any works to frontages, boundaries, roofs, and the surfacing of front gardens in conservation areas and with heritage assets similar to those which were adopted by the Council 25 years ago. And Madam Chairman, in the light of circumstances that have happened since I put the question down, also to prevent the demolition of residential property without planning permission.
Okay, Councillor Nigel Bedford, could you give us your answer, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There is a simple answer, and the answer is no, but I will move on. The District Council can only impose an Article 4 direction in very limited situations, where it is necessary to avoid wholly unacceptable adverse impacts and protect local amenity. It must be based upon robust evidence and can only apply to the smallest geographical area possible. We have controls in place through our policies in the emerging local plan, which seek to limit the loss of office and retail space. Planning permissions will not normally be permitted unless evidence demonstrates that there is no longer a reasonable prospect of the site being used for the existing employment use. It is important to note that Article 4 directions to restrict the change of use of shops, offices to residential use may accelerate conversions. As appropriate, they can apply for the change of use prior to the Article 4 direction taking effect. There is also a risk of compensation for those owners, occupiers affected by the additional burden of securing planning permission for something that would otherwise be permitted development. Additionally, it could be seen as contrary to the government's objective to provide flexibility and adaptability for businesses, particularly during periods of uncertainty such as the pandemic. Likewise, seeking to restrict permitted development rights in relation to conservation areas, heritage assets requires careful consideration. The Council would need to identify the harm being caused to such assets and assess their significance if we were to justify any Article 4 restrictions. Again, it would need to be rooted in evidence. The conclusion is, at this point, the Council does not have the evidence or justification to demonstrate that it would be appropriate and proportionate to consider the introduction of Article 4 directions. However, the Council will continue to monitor the loss of office and retail space and the economic and social impact it has upon the evolution of our town centres and any future compensatory measures that may need to be made to offset the loss of retail and office floor space. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Pond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. The reason the question was phrased as it is was because by giving 6 months' notice, any question of compensation can be avoided. But I hear what the portfolio holder says, and I shall write to him, particularly in respect of the bullet I added, which is demolitions, where some rather sharp practice, I think, has been going on. So thank you for that answer.
Right, thank you very much. And item 9, reports from the leader and members of the Cabinet. Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm disappointed to be given my report this evening from my study due to the fact of having COVID. I would say to all members, it's bad enough to have COVID after being double jabbed. I would recommend that everybody present, if you get the opportunity of the booster jab, do take it. And of course, also get the flu jab done as well. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It's quite unpleasant, and I would rather be with you all this evening, sitting in the chamber, doing what we do best. So I'm glad that democracy continues, local democracy continues, and I must say I'm feeling a bit better today than I was yesterday when I was raging with a temperature as I watched your deliberations at District Development Control. And what a brilliant meeting, and the outcome that Epping deserves with a new sports centre and swimming pool past for Epping last night. I thought that was a terrific result, and very well chaired and very well debated. So I'd like to thank members for that. The summer seems an awful long time ago, and a lot's happened since. Of course, as members, we need to turn our minds to the Boundary Commission, looking at the size and nature of our council in the future. And we will be having very shortly the first of the portfolio holder advisory groups to start looking at how that will progress. The first thing we need to look at, of course, is the makeup of the council, numbers, and whether or not we go for all-out elections or thirds. So there's a big piece of work to be done, and I know officers are doing some of the background work, and we look forward to meeting as a portfolio holder advisory group shortly. During the summer months, of course, I met with the leader of the county council and the deputy leader. It gave me an opportunity to show them around our offices in Epping, the civic hub, which they were very impressed by, and I think a lot of councils now are looking towards what Epping Forest has done as the way forward post-pandemic to make buildings actually work in a more productive manner. There is certainly a lot going on in local government and a lot of change to come, I have a feeling, over the next 4 or 5 years. It was good that they were impressed by Epping Forest. I was glad, and I believe that partnership working with county and all levels of local government is the way forward in the future to get the best value for money that we can for our residents and the best services for our residents. During that time, I've also been meeting on a regular basis, along with my planning colleagues and Councillor John Phillip, with the Harlow Garden Town team, and had regular meetings with the leaders of Harlow and East Herts. Members will know that there will be a new leader of Harlow shortly, and I will probably be able to say more about that at the next meeting of the council. We have a lot of work going on in the background. I must admit, I'm impressed by the amount of work that Councillor John Phillip is doing on the budget. I know he will touch upon that in his report. We have challenging times ahead of us. The government has done what it can through the pandemic, and we are now recovering from the pandemic, and it's been a real good news story. I think that our high streets are starting to show the shoots of recovery over the summer months, and we want that to continue through the winter. But I would urge everyone still to take caution. When you're in shops, do wear a mask, do the right thing, because by protecting each other, we're protecting our local economy, and we can keep things moving into the months ahead. But Chairman, thank you very much. This is a very difficult way to give a report, and always happy to take questions.
Okay, is there any of the portfolio holders that would like to add to the report? Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a very short update from me, just in relation to the key policy consultations that we're undertaking at the moment. We're on our second round of consultation and scrutiny, so that should be coming to overview and scrutiny, sorry, not overview and scrutiny, it should be coming to a policy briefing shortly. Date should be in the current bulletin, if not the next one, which is good to see, and we're going through that, and there was a lot of engagement with the first one, although I would appeal to members to make sure you do also take part in the online forums, as well as kind of the debate and the council consultation itself. The other thing I just really wanted to highlight is a great piece of work around tenant arrears. So since March 2020 to May 2021, we've had no income-related evictions of our council properties, and this is due to the approach we're now taking in relation to working with tenants and supporting them, particularly in terms of kind of debt advice and finance advice. So that's a really positive piece of news, and a piece of news on the intervention we're doing as a council to support our tenants. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Avey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. An issue was raised at the Waste Management Board earlier in the week, which I thought I'd share with you, a note for the future with residents. Christmas is approaching, God forbid, and it is likely residents will buy more presents online than ever before. This leads, of course, to more packaging, especially from Amazon. I would ask that residents, where possible, put packaging into recycle sacks rather than pile it free on the roadside. This is leading to an enormous strain on BIFA crews to clear recycling around the district and delays the whole process. We will be bringing this issue to residents' notice in the next collection calendar, which is due to be released shortly and will be distributed to all residents. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sanger.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to update Council on the engagement and wellbeing project that's been rolled out. I'm very pleased to announce to Council that we've got a director that stepped up to be a volunteer as a mental health first aider, and that's Rob Pavey. So I think it just shows the initiative that he's taken to come on board. Last month in training, we've now got a cohort of about 90 trained mental health first aiders. It's really, really important to note that these people really are where officers and staff can go to if they have any challenges with their mental health. So I think I'd just like to say thank you to Rob for taking the initiative on that as well. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you very much. I had a request by Councillor Heap that he has a question, a particular question on a particular report.
Thank you. I had forgotten I said that. But luckily we have the portfolio holder here for Qualis. So the civic offices, there's now a delay in refurbishing it and getting the tenant in. Is this one of the problems of using a start-up company?
Councillor Philip.
I'm afraid I'm completely perplexed about what Councillor Heap might be referring to, since there's absolutely no relationship between the letting of the second floor and Qualis. The two things are completely separate. The second floor, there is a delay on the agreement because of the listed building status that we have on this building, and therefore the fit out for service offices obviously is somewhat more complex. And I think the lessee had not allowed for the extra time for coping with listed building permission. That is moving forward. The way we're taking it forward is to make sure that the overall term of the lease that we're dealing with in terms of the rent payments will be the same as before. It just starts 3 months later to give them a chance to get through the fit out. There's no problems there. And I say again, there's no relationship between the second floor of the civic offices and Qualis.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 10, questions by members without notice. Again, thank you very much to all the members that declared, they would like to ask questions. I have a list here, and we'll have 20 minutes. Hopefully, we will cover that. So, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. As this is the first time I've spoken since your announcements, can I just first of all say how pleased I was to hear the news about Councillor Richard Morgan. Really well deserved, Richard. A fantastic achievement. Well done. My question, Chairman, is to Councillor Nigel Avery, Environmental and Technical Services, on his report. I think we all agree that the frontline service to our residents in this area is the waste management contract. And I've got 2 alarm bells ringing. So can he assure me that the contractor has made provisional plans and alternative arrangements if a shortage of suitably qualified HGV drivers does materialise? So what contingency plans, or not in detail, but have contingency plans been made to deal with that problem? And secondly, what contingency plans have been made to deal with the issue around the difficulties that we're told about wheelie bins? Is it not possible for the contractor to pre-order what on average they would have ordered over the last 5 years? So rather than wait for demand, once their stocks have run out, why not pre-order based on the pattern of demand over, say, the last 5 years for replacement wheelie bins? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Avey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for that question, Councillor Murray. Yes, we've all read about the problems with drivers across all industries at the moment. Biffa is no different. We are constantly discussing with Biffa driver issues and contingency plans around that. At the moment, they are managing to have enough drivers to meet the needs. And I must say at this point, again, praise Biffa throughout how the wonderful service they've given the council throughout the pandemic. And now with issues like the driver shortage, they really are doing a terrific and professional job. And with that professionalism, they are managing to manage this issue. So I can assure him, at the moment, I don't see any problems. However, that situation can change, but I hope it will be getting better. On the wheelie bin and shortage, I think there are still stocks of wheelie bins and recycle bins. I hope we don't run out, but obviously I'll be looking at, as portfolio holders, see why we've got into that situation.
And the possibility of pre-ordering based on past patterns would seem sensible.
Absolutely. And apologies, I find the acoustics very difficult to hear, and I shall be booking an appointment to have my hearing tested because I can hardly hear anything. But there we are. So you may have to talk up if you ask me other questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Nigel Bedford, the portfolio holder for planning. With regards to the viability assessments on planning applications that do not meet the 40% affordable housing criteria, who pays the consultants' fees for Epping Forest District Council? If it is Epping Forest District Council, shouldn't it be on a similar basis to party wall awards where the applicant pays? I also have concerns with the basis that the 40% target cannot be achieved due to enhanced specification. It's a very woolly sort of heading. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson, for that question. I would start out by stating that the starting point for affordable housing provision for residential developments where it's providing 11 units or more. And the requirement of 40% of the total provided in situ as sets out in the emerging local plan. The target set out in this policy includes provision for the amount of affordable housing permitted under this policy to be subject to viability. In practice, this means that the applicant wishes to argue that their scheme cannot afford to make the required on-site provisions or then off-site affordable housing contributions in lieu of on-site provision. They can seek to make their case through the submission of detailed viability assessments and evidence to the Council. The Council uses viability consultants to consider the information and may decide to accept a lower amount of affordable housing where viability issues have been clearly demonstrated. The cost of the consultant is paid for by the applicant. The cost of what they have purchased for their site, though, is not a determining factor in the viability argument, and it is not our issue. And we are looking to see if we can provide some member training or a better understanding of how this quite complicated issue we can assist members to understand it. Thank you.
Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is a quality-related question, and I'm sure Councillor Phillip will appreciate a golfing analogy. I'll tee this one up. Would it be unfair to describe Qualis's performance as £1 million in debt and not a home built?
Councillor Phillip.
No.
This is your answer? Okay. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, this question for Councillor Kane, grateful for his report. I was tempted to ask him what the shift left principle was, because nothing exciting happens when I do those key presses on my computer. But I actually wanted to ask about the bit on page 54 about the problems with members of the public and people not getting responses to queries and to issues raised. And it's presented here as sort of mainly a technical issue to do with tracking software and so forth. And, you know, I can understand that may have a part to play. But when he sort of looks at this issue, we also look at the sort of wider picture. I mean, staff who are sort of engaged and motivated, understand their place in the organisation and actually have the workload balance to enable them to respond to queries are more likely to get back than staff who feel disengaged or demotivated or don't quite understand where they fit in or just don't have the capacity to do everything they're asked to do. And I think we need to make sure that it's, you know, not just an issue of filling in another digital form, if there's something wider than the technical issues behind that issue. Thanks, Chairman.
Councillor Kane.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It's a valid point. It's not exclusively technical issues that we're dealing with. There are people involved here, of course, and these people are, over the last 18 months, learning to operate in a different way, in a hybrid manner, some working remotely, some working in the office, and then the technical problems come back in again because of the disparate way that the telephone system works and group ringing and this sort of thing. So we're working on a number of fronts, and the biggest challenges we have continue to be staffing levels. So we are constantly playing catch up with people moving on, being seconded, or falling by the wayside. So we do have staffing issues in terms of numbers of people. We also have communication channels that we want to ensure stay open so that there is the teamwork which is so valuable in providing customer service, so we can maintain those direct connections between the support workers and the customers themselves. And overlaid over that, of course, is the technical issues. Not every resident will be able to or capable of going the digital route, and we fully accept that. So we must continue to provide that front-facing service either by telephone or in person, and that's what we're aiming to do. So yes, there's a number of issues, we're aware of them, we are working on them, and I just restate my request for anybody who encounters these difficulties, please do feedback to me with specifics, because that helps us focus on areas that we may miss or that are not performing as well as they might. So please do continue to keep you notified. Thank you.
Councillor Barnard.
The portfolio holder for corporate services, Councillor Darshan Sangha, provide more details on the rollout of the new platform for local authorities' land searches.
Councillor Sangha.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Bonnet, for your question. I'm very pleased to announce today that the migration of the local land charge database has been successfully now moved to the cloud environment. EFD officers have completed all of the tasks in preparation of the data that will be now migrated to the Her Majesty's Land Registry database. The migration of the HMLR database will take place in Q4. So HMLR have not confirmed a specific date when they're going to roll it out. The council is, and I'm pleased to say, on track to receive, and this will be music to Councillor Phillips here, a transition fee of £75,000. The cost of the ICT applications required, this is the interface that they'll be using, will also be coming from the 75. The costs haven't been confirmed. The HMLR database will allow the public to complete their own searches. Now, if you're fortunate to be buying a property, or you have done in the past, you will probably share the same frustration as, with many people that when they go to a solicitor, and Councillor Bonnet, you're a solicitor as well, where solicitors will often say, I'm waiting for the local authority searches to come through. Well, now that pain will disappear. I hope in Q4. These searches will be available 24/7, online at any time. Following, the council will continue to obviously update the database for the local charges. The council will also continue to deal with CON 29 inquiries, which would include such items such as road schemes and outstanding notices as well, and HMLR queries. The public would no longer be able to request local land searches results from the council, so it'd be the HMLR database. And just to say that the officers involved in the project from ICT have done such a brilliant job, so congratulations and thank you to them as well. Especially thanks to Seth Mahadu and Daniel Harris as well, who've worked tirelessly to provide the support service to the project, and Dawn Tracy, the team manager in business support, has led the project and successfully managed the tasks and deadlines by HMLR. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is to Councillor John Phillip, Cabinet Member for Finance and Economic Development. Can the portfolio holder please comment on potential shortfall in next year's budget of £1.5 million, particularly with respect to the money spent on the refurbishment of these offices, and whether Qualis has had an impact on the situation and how much reserves are involved? Thank you.
Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Yes, as called out in my report, we're currently looking at a gap between what we believe that we're going to need to spend and what we have coming in the region of £1.5 million. I think the issues that you've raised are very good ones. It is important to note that when you're looking at the budget in terms of our ongoing expense, there are two different areas. One is the expenditure, which is where the £1.5 million comes from. And secondly, there is capital expenditure. It's capital expenditure that we use to refurbish the civic offices. And just worth pointing out that as Councillor Heap has already asked about with the second floor, we are getting a significant revenue stream coming in from that. It won't actually help us for next year, but it will thereafter. And we will therefore be getting a return on our investment of that capital that we spent on these buildings. And if you think about how much was allocated for the second floor, we're getting a very good return on that. In terms of Qualis, yes, Qualis have a significant impact on that. Qualis are making our job very much easier. The revenue that we're getting in from Qualis in terms of the margin that we're getting on the loans that we've given them mean that we only have that £1.5 million to look for because they pay a significantly higher rate of interest than we are able to get on the public works loans that we have for those particular loans that we gave them. And just to say that we have actually sold the Condor building to Qualis now, so it is no longer EFDC's building, it is Qualis. We are getting the interest on that. That will obviously be in the budget for next year and will give us a significant benefit. I will continue to work with Qualis to see if there are other things that we can do in terms of working with them that will help to reduce that £1.5 million. And finally, on to reserves. Reserves, we are obliged to keep a certain level of reserves. It's prudent to keep roughly half of what we get in from council tax as our reserves for the forthcoming year. There are two reasons why our reserves going into 22-23 are significantly lower than they have been before. One of them, as members will remember, I came to council with the 1920 accounts where we discovered some issues and agreed with the auditors what we needed to do. That resulted in a reduction in the reserves that we have available. And as members will remember, when we set our budget for this year, we agreed to make use of some of our reserves further to make this year easier for the council and to reduce the pressure on our residents. Those two combined have brought our reserves down very close to the minimum that we can actually reasonably retain active. And that therefore means that we cannot make significant use of those reserves in the budget next year to reduce the pressure in the way that we did this year. I am happy to say that there is significant progress being made with my fellow cabinet members looking through what's in their various directorates and actually coming up with potential savings. I hope that we will be able to close this gap in an appropriate time. Thank you.
Councillor Jamie McIver.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is also for Finance Portfolio Holder, Councillor Phillip. Busy night for you. I'm sure, Councillor Phillip, like me, you'll welcome the recent Chancellor's budget, which of course includes many benefits for our local businesses and tailored benefits, particularly for the hospitality and fitness sectors. I was just wondering if you'd be able to advise us on how, as a council, we will be promoting those benefits to the various businesses so they can make full use of the benefits, such as a reduction in rates, and of course, in light of some recent news, to make sure that any major news for this district is always announced in this chamber before it makes the press.
Councillor Philip.
Thank
Can
you,
you
Chairman.
be brief, if you don't mind?
I shall do my
Because I
do
would
my
like
best.
everybody to have a chance.
I tried with one of the earlier questions to be brief, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor McIver. Yes, in terms of publicising things to our businesses, we do have a monthly newsletter that goes out to businesses. Unfortunately, the copy date for that was Wednesday, which makes it a little bit difficult to put anything in. I have made the request to see if we can get anything in to do with the rate changes into that one. Whether that will be possible or not, I don't know. But whatever the case is, we'll look to put a more in-depth article in the next one. In terms of announcing in this chamber, absolutely, that's the way we do business. But it is worth noting that we do publish our agendas before meetings due to the legislation, and we keep things in those agendas so they do become public through those agendas before we actually meet in these buildings, and as such the press do pick them up, and it has to be said, unfortunately, do sometimes misrepresent the situation, which leaves it to me to correct them when we actually come to the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Kaz Rizvi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is for the portfolio holder for Communities and Regulatory Services, Councillor Patel. So as a local GP and someone who's acutely aware of the forthcoming winter pressures, I'm keen to understand how the District Council supports our elderly residents during the winter months. So for the benefit of the public and for my member colleagues, can you please explain what we do? Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Rizvi, for your question. Although the County Council has the statutory responsibility to support our elderly, primarily through adult social care, we as a District Council support residents in a different way. And the team that lead on predominantly supporting these residents is the Community Culture and Wellbeing team. On the 11th of October, so just a couple of weeks back, actually the team held a Stay Well This Winter community event. We hold these events every year, but I'm pleased to say that that was actually the first event held from the new Civic Hub. There we had a number of partner organisations showcasing the work that they do and spreading the key messages around health and wellbeing. Residents that attended were also offered the flu vaccine, the flu jab that day as well. The next event is taking place in Waltham Abbey on the 2nd of December. We also have the Community Culture and Wellbeing team also support community champions. We have 22 across the district. And essentially the work of the community champions is to reach out to older neighbours and residents, members of their community, and proactively signpost them to support services which they feel are needed, whilst raising awareness around local befriending groups. The community champions gave a presentation to one of the select committees a year or so ago, and were actually given a round of applause by the committee for the work that they do within our community. There are a number of programs that are run by the CCW, which are valuable to our elderly residents. But essentially, working through partner organisations and receiving funding from partner organisations like the NHS, we're able to deliver something called the Falls Prevention Programme, where we support with strength and conditioning and other activities to support residents. We're also trialling a social prescribing service from two GP practices based within the district, and if that's successful, we'll be able to roll that out in the other GP practices as well. The CCW team also takes a lead on the Dementia Action Alliance, which supports our elderly residents living with dementia and their families and carers as well. We also, we as a district council also offer grant funding to a number of organisations, particularly VAEF, who also provide a range of services that support our elderly.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline or Chris Bond?
Thank you, Chairman. This is a friendly question to the leader, picking up something which he said in his speech. Was he as surprised as I was to read press reports that Harlow District Council were at a very late stage objecting to certain aspects of the Epping Forest local plan submission version? What does he reckon will come of these objections, and how are they to be processed in the timetable, which is now very strictly limited, of the inspector?
Councillor Whitbread?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised at the same time, because that's always been the position of the Conservative group in Harlow. They had issues they wanted addressing. They've got their right to make their comments as everyone else does. But of course, the most important thing that they need to bear in mind was the Harlow sites weren't included in the main modifications. So it's 5 to midnight, and those main modifications are now closed. And we look forward to eventually having a local plan that can be seen through.
Thank you. Councillor Wixley, a very short one, please.
Well, I'll try and be as short as possible, Chairman. I've waited a long time. My question is to the Housing Services Portfolio Holder, Councillor Holly Whitbread. And the question relates to a matter of process and could affect all councillors who represent wards where sites have been allocated for the Council House building programme. The process has been established whereby councillors can meet officers to discuss proposed sites affecting their wards before a formal planning application. I was therefore quite surprised to discover one of these sites in my Fairmead ward in Loughton is already on the agenda for next week's Area Plan South meeting on the 3rd of November. There are special circumstances relating to this application which I wanted to discuss with Rochelle Hoyt, who is the Service Manager for Development. And we have discussed the possibility of arranging a meeting which is yet to be to take place. While I appreciate that this is a resubmission of a previously approved plan, I still feel that the current practice of consultation with ward members should have been applied in this case. I'm therefore asking for the portfolio holder to use her influence to have the application removed from next week's Plan South agenda, pending the accepted process of consultation with the Service Manager for Development. And I'd be grateful if she could use her influence in that respect.
Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Wixley, for that question. First of all, let me apologise that you haven't been able to arrange a meeting this week with Rochelle, and I will chase that. I'll chase that now, actually, and make sure that we can arrange a conversation by the end of the week. I'll have a conversation with officers tomorrow and discuss the reasoning around this decision. Obviously, as you stated, it's a resubmitted application, and I'm sure has been through various consultation and process, but I do appreciate your concerns, and as you're aware, I know you regularly attend the Council House Building Committee. It's very important to us, particularly as we move forward with the Council House building process, that we do engage with ward members, and that has been a real kind of foundation of the process that we're following. So let me have conversations in the morning, and I'll be in touch with you tomorrow if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And this concludes this item in the agenda. Item 11, motions. Right, we have a motion, Universal Credit and Working Tax Credit, proposed by Councillor Stephen Murray. Councillor Murray, do you have a seconder?
Yes, as per the agenda, Councillor Stephen Neville.
Councillor Neville, do you want to speak now or reserve your speech for later in the debate?
I believe Councillor Murray has to speak first, and I'll speak up to him, yeah.
Thank you.
Directly.
Thank you, Chairman. For the benefit of the webcast, I will read the motion.
Please do.
I'm proposing that Epping Forest District Council notes that 1, the government has, as from the 6th of October 2021, cut universal credit and working tax credit by £20 a week. 2, this weekly cut is equivalent to £1,040 a year. 3, Epping Forest Food Bank estimates that here in Epping Forest, this decision is likely to have a serious impact on more than 9,000 people. And 4, that Epping Forest District Council resolves to ask our 3 local MPs to actively seek the reinstatement of this £20 cut as soon as possible. If I could speak to it, Chairman, if I can find my notes that I've just made. Yeah. Can I first of all just remind members of the declaration I made at the start of the meeting? Can I also say that I thought very, very carefully before putting this motion to members. I put very few motions to council. I've been a member of the District Council nearly 40 years next May, and I think that this is the first motion that I've ever put that might have a national kind of flavour to it. But it does have a national flavour, but the reason I put it is that it has a real local impact. I'm acutely aware that local councils should be about local issues and local issues that affect local residents, and it's not a national political forum. So it is something that I thought carefully about, but it does have a real local impact. Can I also assure members that there is absolutely no party politics involved in this whatsoever? I'm very proud of my role as the least party political member on this council, elected solely as an independent. I do believe I'm the only member of this council that's elected solely as an independent, belonging to no group or registered organisation of any type. And I'm very proud of that reputation, and I wouldn't do anything to call that into question. So there's no politics involved in this at all. So why did I propose it? And I proposed it for a number of reasons, and it was really helping at the hub that I help at in Loughton every Tuesday during the month of August. It was conversations I was having with our users during that month of August about how they were anticipating with dread, and I have to use that word, it's not an exaggeration, they were anticipating with dread the cut in universal credit. We need to remember that the majority of people in receipt of universal credit are in work, and they were really, they were worried about this. I then had conversations with them about how they had benefited from the increase in universal credit, and it was the kind of remarks you would expect users of the hub and the food bank indeed to make. The purchase of new, one parent mentioned the purchase of new shoes in September for 2 of her children had become a possibility when it wasn't a possibility before. Another person mentioned that it meant that there was more regular food on the table than there was before. So when I was hearing remarks like that, I thought the very least I could do is put down a really measured motion. And if you look at the wording, it is a very measured motion. And all we're asking really effectively is that the 3 MPs that represent our area, obviously we have one main one, Epping Forest, but we do touch on two other neighbouring constituencies, Harlow and Brentwood and Ongar, to lobby for the full reinstatement of this ending of the uplift in universal credit as soon as possible. I haven't even put a time scale because I realise these things need to be managed. I think we need to realise, members, that this is exactly the wrong time to have introduced this decision. We're just about to enter a period where food prices are going to go up at the highest rate for the last 30 years, and it doesn't matter which newspaper, which think tank you read, they're all saying the same thing. We've got accelerating fuel costs, so it really is going to be a very, very hard time for the poorer members of our community here in Epping Forest. And I think the other comment I would make, because I'm aware that I'm talking largely to Conservative councillors, and that's fine, they're my colleagues. I could share lots of quotes from leading Conservatives who are sharing the view that I've put tonight. Ian Duncan Smith, the MP that introduced universal credit, is against what has happened. Baroness Philippa Stroud, a Conservative member of the House of Lords, who was actually the architect of the universal credit policy, is against what has happened. So I would ask members, please, to support the motion. I think it's the least that we could do, and we're recognising the really difficult decision that the decision to make this ending of the uplift is bringing on a considerable number of our local residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Neville.
Thank you, Chairman. I was proud to second this motion. Losing £20 a week for some people, okay, that's just pocket money. For some other people, it's a matter of being able to afford the very basics in life. And that, without that £20, they simply can't do it. We've already heard about the cost of living going up, and it's only going to get worse as we go forward. More people will feel the need to use a food bank and are doing so. I've heard from the Bucklersfield Money Advice Service that more people are now using their service as they try and work out how to juggle finances. Not always easy when you're on a very low income. And of course, we heard some good news from the Chancellor yesterday that will affect roughly 1/3 of the people who were hit by this loss of working tax credit and universal tax credit earlier in the month. Now, while that's welcome, there's still 2/3 of people who it doesn't affect. And that means there's more work to be done, which is why I think one of the most important things in this particular motion is the fourth item, that we ask our three local MPs to actively seek the reinstatement of this £20 cut as soon as possible. So while I say well done to the government for making some progress, we just need more progress to be done, and that's why the fourth item is vital, I think. I'll leave it there.
Thank you for that. Members, we have an amendment, so we'll not go into debate until we hear the amendment. So there is an amended motion, so you have some on your distributed. It will be distributed very shortly.
while that's just been distributed, Madam Chairman, I will say thank you to the proposer and seconder of the amendment for letting me see it at about 6:15 this evening. Thank you for that courtesy.
For everybody's interest, the motion has to be moved and seconded before it can be amended. That is the reason you do not have the distribution of the amendment earlier.
Madam Chairman, for those of us who are remote, might it be possible for one of the officers to screen share it once members in the chamber have seen it?
Screen share it. Let me have a word with the officers on that. How can we screen share it? Leave it with us, we'll do it. Yeah.
Perhaps Adrian Hendry might be able to assist us. He's the on Zoom.
Okay. Could you bear with us, please?
Yeah, we've emailed it to the Zoom committee, so bear with.
Shall we tell them that?
Oh, yeah, you can do. We're looking to screen share. Here we go. Look. There you go.
I hope you can see that. It's now on the
Okay.
screen.
Well done, you have that now. Right. Can I actually have the proposer of the amendment, please? Councillor Kane,
Yes, I'd like to propose that.
do you have a seconder?
Indeed, Councillor Avey will be seconding.
Councillor Avey, would you want to speak now or reserve your speech later in the debate?
Madam Chairman, later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I looked at the original motion from Councillor Murray, and I found the choice of words perhaps unfortunate, given his declaration about non-partisan, but there was certainly a motive. But my real problem was the thrust of the motion I felt would be ineffectual, asking our 3 MPs to lobby for something that is obviously government policy, I thought would be ineffectual. So I looked at this and I thought, let's focus as a positive, forward-looking council on what we as a council can actually do to assist. There is no doubt that there will be a good number of residents within this district who will need support through this. As it says in my amendment, this isn't a cut, it is the withdrawal of a temporary increment which was put in place for the COVID crisis. Just as all the other emergency measures have had to come to an end, this one did too. But I accept that the sentiments behind your motion are very valid, and we must focus on providing as much support as we can. So, as you've looked through the amended motion as I've presented, I'm focusing here. We had the opportunity to listen to the Chancellor yesterday in his budget, and we have seen an increase to the minimum wage to £9.50. And as Councillor Murray pointed out in his opening remarks, the majority of claimants are in work, and this will make a difference to them. Likewise, the cut in the universal credit taper by 8%, bringing it down to 55%, and that will allow people claiming to keep more of the money that they earn in their pocket. And Epping Forest Council, I think we can resolve to continue to support our affected residents and providing access to all of those services that I list there, and there are many more that are available. We are all conscious of the impact of these changes. We're all conscious of the impact that COVID has had, and we, as a council, should focus on doing what we can to assist our residents. Thank you.
Right, members, you have the amendment. We go to debate. So, Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a slight feeling of going through the motions with this thing. You know, someone puts forward a proposal, it's negatived, we vote, the amendment votes through, but it shouldn't be just a sort of thing that happens by rote, because this is something that actually does affect a substantial proportion, an important proportion of our residents who are in need. And the thrust of the argument we've heard about the reason for not maintaining the £20 uplift is effectively that the pandemic is over, it's not an emergency anymore, and everyone can get back to normal. But of course, prices, as we heard, are not going back to where they were. Energy costs have increased and are set to increase again in April. Other costs, food costs, the general cost of living has gone up. And what the amendment does is it lists lots of important stuff, but a lot of which has very little to do with the motion, because it's other schemes to do with apprenticeships and so forth. And in particular, the minimum wage, for example, doesn't come in until next April, whereas the cut has come in already. So already you're talking about a 6-month gap between those two things. And of course, universal credit is not just an entitlement for those in work. It's also an entitlement for many who are not able to work. And they're the ones who are hit particularly hard by the changes we've got. So like Councillor Murray, I was struck by the number of Conservative MPs and politicians who actually recognised what the issue were and were prepared to support the sentiments behind these motions. I think it's a worthwhile thing voting for. I'd have been happy to vote for the amendment as well if it was an add amendment, but because it's a delete and then add, I don't feel able to, and I'll therefore be supporting the original motion. Thanks, Chairman.
The amendment, you mean?
I'll support the original motion and vote against the amendment, which I would have been happy to support if it simply added things rather than seeking to take away as well.
Okay. Any more hands, please? Councillor Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. In favour of the amendment to the motion. And I think it's really important tonight that we do appreciate that we are going through difficult times. And certainly in my cabinet roles, both as a deputy cabinet member at Essex, where I'm the deputy for communities, and also here in Epping Forest, where I'm the cabinet member for housing, you do see people in society who are struggling, and it has been a hard time. So this is no way, our amendment is no way trying to diminish that fact. But actually, it's talking about the work that we have done, we can do as a council, the work the government has done nationally. I mean, it was good news in the budget yesterday, and I'm pleased that Councillor Neville did highlight that in his speech in relation to the taper and that will see an increase of £500 to many of those on universal credit. Also freezing the personal tax income for those who are working, which means that they keep more of their own money. And actually, a piece of work that the government are doing, which I would really like to highlight, is the work around getting people into work and good, solid jobs. So the Kickstart scheme, which has been introduced during the pandemic, has created 93,000 jobs for young people just in the last year, which I think is something that's really fantastic and we need to recognise, because these are people who do not need the benefit support anymore, or if they do, they need less of it. So I think that's a really important thing, and the building up of skills is really key. Talking a little bit about the levelling up agenda at Essex County Council, this week is half term. We have Activate Essex camps across our county. I believe we've got 101 this half term, and they're providing holiday activities for those on the lowest income, and also hot meals at lunchtime. And we ran them very successfully across the whole summer, and there were numerous in Epping Forest. In fact, I visited one in Waltham Abbey, also my own ward in Thornwood and in North Weald, and it's really fantastic to see these and how well taken up they were, as well as also distributing hot meal vouchers, providing that additional support. Also, it would be remiss not to highlight some of the fantastic work which the government and the county council did, and the district council in partnership across the pandemic, in providing grants for food banks like Epping Forest Food Bank. Just briefly talking about a bit of what we do at Epping Forest District Council and what we can do further. So we do so much in terms of working in partnership. So Voluntary Action Epping Forest are a really fantastic organisation, and actually we've got a service level agreement with them, which I was really proud to work on when I had communities in my portfolio. And that was a really long process, and we wanted to make sure we were giving them the support they needed. And actually, I saw firsthand during the pandemic, particularly the support that they do provide. There was one gentleman in my ward who fell on hard times, lost his job in the pandemic, and he found it really hard to ask for help. And he went to Voluntary Action Epping Forest. They provided him with a winter grant, winter clothes, actually some furniture for his home because he had to move very suddenly, and they were fantastic. And I think it's really important to highlight, as a district council, we are subsidising Voluntary Epping Forest along with the work of fantastic volunteers, which means that these services can provide people with help when they need it. Also, the work we're doing through our grant funding. A couple of years ago, we saw money go to the food bank. I think it was £5,000 in 2019, and I hope this is something that Councillor Aniket Patel can look into as we come to the end of the financial year. And I think the other thing I just would like to highlight is the work in terms of directing people to the advice and support they need, which we can do as a district council. So first of all, this building, actually having citizens' advice here to provide people with advice, having our housing officers here to provide them with that advice and support. The work I was talking about earlier around rent arrears and cutting rent arrears, and actually that physical support, but also using technology to ensure that people can access support and advice more easily, which I think was a really good a slight silver line of the pandemic, that support was available and more readily available. So this evening I've just highlighted a few of the things that we can realistically do as a local authority, as a district council, and also the work we're doing at Essex County Council to support those on the lowest income. And whilst I appreciate the sentiment of the motion this evening, I will be supporting the amendment to the motion, because I believe ultimately, as a council, we're here to provide support for local people, and we've got to be realistic about what we can do. The reduction in the £20, it was not a cut, it was a withdrawal, and there is that idea that we are getting back to some normality now. So this is about supporting people out of that, providing them the advice and support they need, and also welcoming what we're doing to try and make sure that when people get jobs, they keep them, and when they need support, we're there for them. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Sherry Rackham.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank Councillor Murray for his motion and also Councillor Kane for his amended motion. This issue cannot be looked at in isolation. The removal of the £20, and I stress temporary, uplift to universal credit is just one aspect of our welfare system. It was given when people were on furlough and only receiving 80% of their pay. But furlough has ended and many people are back in full-time work, We also have a buoyant market now where there are a lot of jobs available for people. As we know from the budget yesterday, the taper rate for universal credit has been reduced by 8%, and the work allowance for households with children or those on a limited capacity for work is rising by £500. This means a single mother with 2 children who rents their home and works full-time on the national living wage will be £1,200 a year better off. And a couple with 2 children again renting, where one partner is in full-time work and the other in part-time work, will be £1,800 a year better off. As such, I will be supporting Councillor Sam Kane's amended motion, and I'm sure we will all agree that it is far better to let households keep more of the money that they earn rather than provide an across-the-board increase in welfare. Thank you.
Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The amendment doesn't really sit right with me. And that's because I think everyone's talking about the hardship here and the struggles, yet it's within our gift just to write to our MP. And I don't understand why we wouldn't. So, yeah, I think for the UN Global Food Index is at 33% in the last 12 months. And I just think we're kidding ourselves here.
Thank you. Councillor MacGyver.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's really good that we are recognising this important matter, which of course may be causing some of our residents anxiety. But at the same time, I think it's important that as a council, we provide residents with a positive outlook. We've had a very, very concerning time throughout the pandemic, and actually what Councillor Kane's amendment to this motion does, and I fully support this amendment, is it actually does provide some of the positive work that is being done and will continue to be done to support our residents in the very best way that we can. And I support what Councillor Holly Whitbread has said, and indeed recognise the very good points made by Councillor Rackham. And Councillor Murray has obviously made a very, very good case for why some people may be struggling. But the best point Councillor Murray has made is that across our district, there are fantastic organisations that support our residents. And what we need to do as councillors is not ask our members of parliament to write to the government and lobby the government. What we need to do is encourage our residents to make use of the very good facilities that are available and to encourage our residents to get the support that is available. And I find it very, very unfair that we could make this matter unnecessarily stressful for our residents. This was a temporary support that the government provided, and I'm sure those that benefited from it have been very, very grateful for it. And what we need to do is encourage people to take up the other positive, and there's a huge list on Councillor Kane's amendment that is evidence of the support that is available, and we need to signpost people to that support. And for that reason, I find it hard to support the original motion, but I fully support Councillor Kane's amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Sanger.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to speak on this motion, but having seen the amended motion by Councillor Kane, I'm in total support of this. Obviously, there's a lot of positives there, a lot of help from the government. With the furloughing scheme, with the business rates relief grant, and the Department for Levelling Up for Housing Communities have only just announced a £65 million support package that will be available for families on low income, and that's unring-fenced. So, local authorities will be able to apply for that to prevent homelessness. I wholeheartedly support Councillor Kane's amended motion. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Philip.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, now I will keep this brief. I think we have to, not surprisingly, at least partially look at it from a financial point of view. We've already talked this evening about the council budget. It's probably worth noting that governments also have a budget that they need to balance, and they put all the different parts into it. We've heard a number of the things that have gone into the budget of yesterday that will involve increase in spending, and that obviously needs to be balanced by cutting back in other places. As Councillor Whitbread pointed out, this was a temporary uplift in the same way that putting in the furlough scheme was a temporary uplift. We do know from the data that we're gathering that the district as a whole is recovering more quickly than we perhaps expected it to be, and the impact on our employment has been not as bad as we think it is. Worth also noticing that people who are on universal credit are not necessarily going to see their income fall because of the benefit cap, and it reduces the amount that a person can receive. So the cap for a single person is effectively £258 a week. That's post-reduction, the removal of the temporary benefit cap. I think looking at this as a whole is what we've got our government to do. They have looked at it in the round and put in different things and always flagged up that this benefit cap was, the uplift was going to come away. They did actually extend it for 6 months to take it further, but now we have a budget that's come forward from the government yesterday. I think that is an overall plan that we should not be saying we take issue with one or two parts of it, because there are things in there that benefit our residents significantly. I'm perfectly happy to support the amendment, and as such, that's the way I will be going.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. Not wishing to repeat what's already been discussed this evening and the points that have been raised for the amended motion. Just like to add to something Councillor Whitbread has mentioned regarding the grant aid scheme that the council offers, and touching on the point that Councillor Neville has made as well regarding an organisation within Bucker Still. We still do have monies available for community or local voluntary groups that are providing services to support residents. And I'm happy to fast track any of these applications before Christmas so that we can support residents if support these organisations provide the services to residents if necessary.
Thank you. Councillor Heap.
Thank you, Chairman. Won't be supporting the amendment. A bit surprised that there was an amendment, because I thought the original thing was a simple recognition of facts with a tiny request for a tiny bit of action, which is a letter. I thought the original motion was humane, caring and uncontroversial. So for that reason, I can't support the amendment. But we do have to acknowledge that, yes, the uplift was always claimed to be temporary, and that always means it's going to be withdrawn. But we also have to bear in mind that it pales into insignificance compared to the 22 billion or 36 billion wasted on track and trace.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, members. I'd just like to make a couple of points, really, that I'm sure, along with many people actually in this chamber, my role as a councillor, I meet many people who are really struggling and also have got heavy levels of debt that can't be cleared overnight. Though I welcome the council tax support that we have here and the excellent support many of our officers do give people who are in difficulties. I'd just like to quote what the Joseph Rowntree Foundation said, that the Household Support Fund, which we can nominate people for, they describe it as an 11th hour attempt to save face as the government presses ahead with an unprecedented overnight cut. And up to the last minute, they urged people to stop the cuts because they felt that it was better that families who need to apply for emergency grants have the cost of basics like food and heating through winter. And the Chancellor does realise the damage the cut will cause. And basically, it gives people the money with the choice of how to spend it. I agree, it was always said to be a temporary measure, but I think it would have been better to withdraw it on the 1st of April, so people have got the winter with all the high costs that have already been mentioned by my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I cannot see any other hands. The mover of the motion has the right at the end of the debate, because I cannot see anyone else, before we go to vote, to to actually reply. So, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't make my reply a long one. I think on the whole the quality of the debate has been good and the contributions have been considered and well put. I thought it was unfortunate that we had one or two contributions that I thought were overtly party political, but I suppose that was to be expected. But it was only one or two. The vast majority of the contributions were done in a non-partisan and very useful way. The reason why I won't be supporting the amendment, and it's got a lot in there that I could very easily support and want to recognise, I don't have any problem with. It's two reasons. One's very minor, but I do think it's unfortunate on the reverse page, and I'll remind people about my declaration of interest. But I do think it's very unfortunate that we don't mention the Free Food for You hub. We've got Epping Forest Food Bank there. I just think that's unfortunate, but that's a small point. It wouldn't be my main reason for not being able to support this amendment. I just don't understand why we can't also, within this amendment, simply be asking our 3 local MPs to actively seek the reinstatement of this £20 cut as soon as possible. And that's for 2 reasons. One, that's part of the job of MPs, to represent our feelings, either as constituents, as a corporate body, to the government about our feelings as it's impacting our area. So I would have thought it's quite a reasonable thing to be asking our MPs to do. And very few of the government things that have been mentioned actually affect people who can't work and are going to lose the universal credit. So that's why supportive of all the amendment, apart from it should have kept number 4 in. It's quite a simple thing to do. So I won't be supporting the amendment, Chairman.
Okay. Before we put it to the vote, Councillor Avey, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, albeit I'm sure this motion was well-intentioned and not politically motivated, and I mean that. In saying the following, neither am I being politically motivated, but I think the phrase was motion of national flavour, and I think we should follow the convention that we only consider local issues in this chamber. Frankly, I don't think residents are going to thank us for having long discussions about issues which normally would be discussed in Parliament. And actually listening to what was said, I could feel us being drawn into that. We are a mini Parliament and discussing national issues. Frankly, I think we should, if we have to have this motion, we should have it in the amended form, which relates to things we can do for our residents as district councillors. And that's why I think you should support the amended motion. And frankly, it is open to everybody in this chamber to go away as either a councillor or a resident and write to your local MP insisting that the government re-looks at reintroducing the £20 into the charge. We don't need to send that message from here. That can be done individually. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We will then go to the vote, and I'm declaring that I am a voting chairman today. So, for the amendment, as it stands at the moment, who is in favour of the amendment? I have to say that people from the Zoom, they cannot actually vote.
(26), Chairman.
Thank you. Against the amendment?
6, Chairman.
Any abstentions?
4, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So this amendment is moved and passed. So now the original motion is being changed to a substantive motion, which I will read. Do you want me to read it through? That Epping Forest District Council notes that the government has, as from 6th of October 2021, withdrawn the £20 per week uplift to universal credit and temporary measure brought in to help people on lower incomes during the coronavirus pandemic. Item 2. There are currently over 8,000 claimants of universal credit in the district, some of whom may experience difficulties as a result of the decision to withdraw the uplift to US. Number 3. Epping Forest District Council welcomes the increase in the minimum wage to $9.50 an hour and the cut in the universal credit taper by 8% by 1st of December, bringing it down from 63% to 55%, allowing claimants to keep more of the money they earn. And 4, that the Epping Forest District Council resolves to continue to support affected residents, providing access to Household Support Fund, small grants worth up to 500 million intended to help struggling families meet costs for daily needs such as food, clothing and utilities. Free school meals, the provision of half-term holiday camps from Essex County Council delivered by Active Essex and school meal vouchers. Food bank vouchers, EFTC hardship fund, support and assistance in returning to work through schemes such as the Kickstart scheme. This is funding to encourage employers to take on 16 to 24-year-olds who receive universal credit, with the government covering the cost of 25 hours of work per week for a total of 6 months, as well as the employer's national insurance contributions. This will be extended until the end of January. Job Entry Targeted Support Scheme. People who have been on universal credit for more than 13 weeks can get employment support for 6 months, which includes a personal careers advisor. Apprenticeship incentives. This encourages employers to take on apprentices with a payment of £3,000 in addition to the £1,000 already on offer. Working in partnership with local organisations, including Voluntary Action Epping Forest Food Bank and Citizens Advice, to ensure that the most vulnerable receive the support they require. Ensuring advice and support is accessible, enhancing delivery of such services through technology and the new Civic Hub. Right. Item 12, appointment to outside body. Sorry?
That's now become a substantive motion, so we'll need to have a debate, if there is a debate, and then a vote on it.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is, as I said, becomes a substantive motion. If there is a debate, by all means we can debate it, if there is a need for that. Otherwise, we'll go to the vote. Yes? Okay. Voting for...
Voting in favour of the substantive motion.
Yes. Voting in favour of this is a substantive motion. In favour.
Yeah. 26, Chairman.
Against? Against? No one?
None, Chairman.
Abstentions?
10, Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else I should say? So then the motion has been passed. Item 12, appointment to outside body, Whips Cross Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Whitbread. Item 12, appointment to outside body, Whips Cross.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, this is just an amendment from last time. Councillor Pond, when I appointed Councillor Patel, that it perhaps should be someone who is not in the executive of the council. He was correct, and therefore I've made this proposal in the agenda this evening.
Thank you. This is for noting. Councillor Joe Shear-Barnier. We have...
Any other nominations?
Yeah, is there any other nominations, of course? No? Okay. Agreed? Thank you. Thank you. Item 13, we don't need to take this item as we saw Councillor Plummer, and we wish him well. It's very nice to see him in person. Okay, right. Item 14, Audit and Governance Committee, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members, and good evening, officers. I'm sure you've all read the report, and after last night's mammoth session, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that I shall be brief. In fact, very brief. Okay, so the A&G is a small committee. We've got 7 members, which includes 2 independent members, garnered from outside of the FDC. This is so we can independently assure that the FDC is compliant and has robust and adequate controls over financial and non-financial transactions, fraud, risk, and value for money. We do this by working closely with internal audit, risk, fraud, external auditors, and our S151 officer. We can't make decisions, but we can make recommendations. Now, over this last year, we've discussed a few times the situation regarding Qualis. And whilst we don't have any direct input or say over it, we do have a relationship with other aspects, such as the value for money remit with any financial transactions or other transactions from the FDC to Qualis. We also have a relationship with the S151 officer, who, in his role as a conduit between ourselves and Qualis, has items to confirm to, and we can certainly keep our eyes on that. Last year, COVID affected our external auditors, and the 2019-20 annual statement of accounts was late, quite seriously late. But it was approved in July this year. Next year, it's been agreed that the A&G committee, by delegation, will actually approve the statement of accounts in place of the full council. That was agreed by this council a few months ago and by the Constitution Working Party. Okay, in summary, I'm nearly come to the end, the A&G is small, independent, but important. Thanks for listening, and please note that our annual report has been made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Philip?
Thank you, Chairman. Not a question, just on behalf of the Finance Department, etc., who attend rigorously all the Audit and Governance meetings, as do I, thank the Audit and Governance Committee for all the work they put in, making sure that the things are right. And just one minute correction to the Chairman. The actual agreement of this council to go into Audit and Governance is actually the next item on the agenda.
Okay. Noted. Councillor Bedford, did you? No? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Brooks?
It's just a question, really, and I apologise because I know I haven't been for quite a while to the audit meetings. I know we've had a particular issues in the last couple of years because of changes of personality in the finance, getting the accounts ready on time. And you said that, I read that many councils didn't. But because we've sort of got a more settled team, I thought it might be easier to get them ready for the full council.
I take it that this is for Councillor Philip, not for Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chairman. So a couple of things, and I don't want to come into item 15 yet, where we're actually recommending the audit and governance do. That's a slightly different thing. Yes, there were a number of major issues last year, not least the previous year's accounts we needed to get through. That we are not at the point yet where we have an agreement from the auditor to bring forward this last year's accounts, but we are aligned, I think, with 100% of the Essex authorities on that. None of them have it off. And it's a combination of not just of the staff within the council, but actually the audit teams are not able to do the amount of work that needs to be done. So we're working forward on that one. I'll leave in terms of it coming to council until we get to item 15, but I think that's a good idea.
Thank you. Right. Item 15, Constitution Working Group. Could I ask Councillor Rackham, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a chance to read the report. We've actually met twice in the last period. So in 2021, obviously because of COVID, we didn't actually meet in 2020. Right, so what we actually covered on the 2nd of September is we covered the regulations governing the publication of the Council Statement of Accounts that have changed, with the deadline being brought forward by 2 months to the 30th of September 2021. Currently, the Audit and Governance Committee considers the Statement of Accounts and the report of the external auditors before referring this to the full Council. So delegating the decision to approve the Statement of Accounts to the Audit and Governance Committee, which is permitted under the regulations, will significantly assist our officers in meeting the statutory timetable. And the second amendment, which we recommended, incorporated the updated procurement rules that were agreed by Cabinet in January 2021 into the Constitution. And therefore, I formally moved the two recommendations in the last meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Philip.
And I will be very brief. I just wanted to say, because I sort of alluded to it in Councillor Brooks previously, that in all my time at the council, I've never heard of full council refusing audit and governance's recommendation to approve the accounts. If we're at that level, it doesn't make sense for it not to be delegated to audit and governance. It has to be said audit and governance, if they so choose, could still send it up to full council if they felt there was something of sufficient concern. I hope we never get to that point, because that would be not a good move.
Councillor Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. At the Constitution Working Group, I did express some reservations about this proposed delegation of authority. And I know that, as Councillor Philip has said, we don't debate this when it comes to council, but at least it's there on the agenda. It draws our attention to it. But Councillor Philip did assure me that he would take measures to ensure that it was brought to the attention of the council. So perhaps he'd just repeat the assurances he gave me that we, although it wouldn't be debated here, we would still be aware it was happening.
Chairman, I'm happy to repeat those assurances, and I think what I said was that we would flag up in the bulletin when the accounts are going to the Audit and Governance Committee, so that all members will be aware.
Okay, Councillor John Whitehouse.
Sorry, very briefly, yes, I can see the practical advantages of this, although I still think it's something all councillors should take an interest in. But picking up on the points been made, on page 98, it adds to the Audit Committee's terms of reference that it should review and adopt the accounts, which is fine. But then it deletes the power to bring the thing that has just been mentioned to the attention of the council. and I can see no good reason for that deletion, and I suggest that we reinstate those words and just go with the addition.
Councillor Philip?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm actually quite comfortable with them being removed. It doesn't restrict the Audit and Governance Committee from bringing anything to Council that they believe the Council needs to be aware of. I think keeping the annual accounts firmly within the Audit and Governance from the general point of view is the right thing to do, and it was discussed fairly in fair amount of depth at the Constitution Committee. This is their recommendation. I don't see anything here that would suggest that we need to take a different view. I hear Councillor Whitehouse's concerns, but knowing how the Audit and Governance Committee works and knowing the Chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee, if they felt there was something that Council needed to be notified of, they could do it. They don't need the power that was contained with that. And I think keeping it in there just confuses the direction of who's actually responsible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Whitehouse, would you like to come back or no? Okay, thank you. Yes. Do we agree? Okay. It's a bit vague. Agree. Item 16. Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Could I ask Councillor Sartin?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, what you have this evening is the report from the last meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which took place in October. You'll have seen the various items that are covered in there. I would just perhaps draw your attention to number 2, where reference is made to the proposal to plant around 2,300 trees in Jessel Green. This did lead to some discussion, and subsequently a call-in has now been received regarding that item, but that will go through the process that call-ins now take going forward. But Councillor Chris Pond has called that item. That has been a decision of Cabinet. Otherwise, I've got no other comments on the report. Thank you, which is just for noting.
Okay, we have a couple of councillors that they would like to speak. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The chairman of the committee has made reference to the issue I wish to speak about, and that's the proposal as regards Jessel Green that came up at the ONS meeting. And the reason I feel really passionate about this isn't just that I'm a Loughton councillor, but I was a very active supporter of the Save Jessel Green campaign, and I always remember with great affection that for the first 16 years on this council I was a Loughton Broadway councillor, so I know this neck of the woods like the back of my hand. I think the first point I want to make is obviously the issue has moved on since the portfolio holder decision, not a cabinet decision, a portfolio holder decision, hence the call-in. And I'm sure that it will be sorted out in an amicable fashion. There's no malice behind the call-in. It's, we're looking for a constructive solution to the issue, and I'm sure the primary discussion will actually sort out the issue. The points I wanted to make about it tonight are, first of all, I want to absolutely acknowledge the turnaround from Epping Forest District Council, and it has to be from the majority group because they run the council. I really want to say 100% on behalf of the local people in Loughton, thank you. It was only, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, with the support of our MP, you wanted to build on this green and you wanted to destroy a sizeable element of it forever. Now you're wanting to save the green and plant trees on the green, so hallelujah. I want to acknowledge that and want to say thank you very much for that. I'm sure the inspector and her feelings had a lot to do with it, but, congratulations where congratulations are due. Thank you for that. I don't know the reason for the call-in because I wasn't part of the call-in, and I'm sure that it will be fairly similar to the points I made at ONS, and therefore I wanted to give them a wider airing tonight. One of the beauties of Jessel Green in this part of Loughton is its very open aspect. And of course, no one can be against the planting of trees. But 2,300 does seem a fairly significant number, and I'm sure it can be resolved around the call-in. So 2 principles, please. We must keep the open aspect of Jessel Green, and I think there's a real need for the involvement of community groups, and that's recognised within this report. It's also recognised within the portfolio holders report that received in an earlier part of the agenda. But I want to be a little bit more precise than that. Save the Jessel Green campaign group, which is still there. It's in abeyance, of course, because they've done their job, but the infrastructure is still there. They should be involved in the consultation. And I think above all, I think the local schools should have some ownership. We've got 2 very local schools that have very local catchment areas, Debden Park High School and Herrywood County Primary School. We have also got 2 other schools who have a slightly wider catchment area. I wouldn't choose to exclude them, but they aren't primarily children from that local area, and that's St John Fisher and the Davenham Foundation School. So I wouldn't seek to exclude them, but if we can't include everyone, then Herrywood Primary and Debden Park High School, for obvious reasons, would be the best 2, because I think whatever we decide as regards the green, as regards the number of trees and where they should be planted, and that's not for discussion tonight, if we can get ownership among younger people towards those trees, the chances of more of them, growing up, so to speak, will increase. Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make those important remarks.
Councillor Sargent, would you like to reply to that?
Well, thank you very much for those comments, and obviously there was concern raised at the Overviews Committee to the number of trees that were being proposed. I'm not sure whether Councillor Holly Whitbread wishes to say anything in relation to it as it comes under her portfolio.
Yes, she does. I would allow Councillor Whitbread first.
Thank you, Chairman. I can see Councillor Bedford's jumping up in front of me because I know trees is a particular passion of his. But thank you to Councillor Murray for highlighting this evening. And there was a debate around this issue at ONS, and I appreciate that it has been called in, the decision has been called in by the Loughton residents. We're in discussions at the moment, and I'm actually very open to listening to those discussions. First of all, I think it really needs to be emphasised that this is a positive thing. We've received a huge amount of grant funding from an external organisation. We're looking to plant thousands of trees, offsetting carbon emissions and really buying into our green agenda locally. So I think that is a really positive thing. I am certainly listening to local concerns and will certainly also be working with community groups on this project because it is about planting in the best possible location. Obviously, the ONS will debate this in full, but I have had extensive discussions with the climate change officer. These trees that we're looking to plant are young trees, and actually it's partly to do with the survival rate of the tree. So in the end, it might not necessarily be 2,000 trees, it might be more like 1,000, hopefully not the 90% of trees which were killed when they planted them in Chelmsford, which we had an amusing discussion on at the last meeting. But I am open, and I know conversations are ongoing with officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pond, Chris Pond.
Yes, this is just a cordial call-in because I agree with almost everything that Councillor Holly Whitbread said. We will be looking to plant the full number of trees for which the council has obtained grant funding, but we just think they're in the wrong place. So I very much doubt and hope that it won't go back to full ONS, and I look forward to the discussions with Holly Whitbread and officers on Monday. Can I just pick up one other comment in the ONS report? Could the chairman of ONS please say whether the information given to her by the climate change officers on the proposed electric bus between the Broadway and Epping Forest shopping park have indicated what form it would take and when it will start? Because the siege mentality of people using the retail park before Christmas must double the district's carbon footprint in the few weeks through the gridlock of idling traffic. So did she get any indication of when it will start and whether it will be a free service?
Thank you, Councillor Sartin.
Thank you, Councillor Pond, for that question. I'm afraid it's not something that I've got an answer to. I would look probably to one of the portfolios who it would sit in, but I'm not seeing anybody looking as if they've got the answer either. Councillor Avey might have the answer.
Councillor Avey, yes.
Unfortunately, I haven't got the answer, but I think it sits in my portfolio, and there is a piece for my next report to Council on transport. We will be including a section on that, so I'll ensure electric buses included, or buses, I should say.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As Jessel Green is actually in Fairmead Ward, which I represent, I felt I should make some comments. First of all, on Councillor Murray's point about the Save Jessel Green group, I think you can be quite confident that they will be involved, because the Climate Change Officer, Francisco Edmonds, actually contacted me with a view to informing her of a contact with the Save Jessel Green group, which I was able to do. So they should be in contact with each other. In fact, I know they have been. So that's a positive thing. I view this calling as actually, it should be a very positive thing as well, that we get the trees in the right place. And I think it's excellent that should go forward. I think the Debden Estate is a very special place, actually. It's got some wonderful green spaces in there. I think it's a wonderful thing that it was saved from development, Jessel Green. And I think it's actually built on Garden City principles, so it should be a good blueprint for future garden village or town or cities which are being proposed in the Epping Forest District area. And I'm sure the chairman of ONS would support that, because I think she once told me that she grew up in Welwyn Garden City.
Councillor Sartin, would you like to reply to this?
I don't think it needs a reply as such, but yes, I did grow up in Welwyn Garden City, with the Garden City very much part of my background, and one that I particularly hold dear in the sense of the way in which the Garden City itself evolved over the years. As far as obviously it is now subject to a call-in, there will be the meeting with the lead councillor and I believe one other, who I believe is actually Councillor Wixley, and the portfolio holder and officers. So that will take place in the next, it might even be next week from memory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands. Thank you. Right, item 17, joint arrangements and external organisations. Members, you have seen my report. The Royal Gunpowder Mills, of course, they're closed, but a lot of people are working inside. A lot of people said that unfortunately it is closed, and it looks, completely deserted, but it isn't. A lot of work has been done, but unfortunately they did try to open up a couple of times and they had problems. So hopefully by Easter 2022 we will have, if everything goes according to plan, we will have the Royal Gunpowder Mills open again. I hope I can take any questions if you have any. No? Okay. This is for noting, really. Do we have any other representations from for external? Councillor Murray?
Chairman, I think I should report. I represent the council on the Premier Nature Reserve in the area, managed by the Epping Forest, the Essex Wildlife Trust, the Roding Valley Meadows. The new warden, who had only been in post for a couple of years, has actually left for a new job. So there's going to be a temporary warden while an appointment is made. It was covered at the last management meeting, and I'm satisfied that the Essex Wildlife Trust have made adequate arrangements while they appoint a new warden.
Thank you very much. Right, no other hands. Thank you. Item 18, exclusion of public and press. So, members, thank you very much for attending this meeting, and thank you all the virtual councillors for attending the meeting as well. And I'm closing bring the meeting to a close at 9:23 tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Chair.
wanted to do that.